In a small village, where the earth cracked under the sun and the sky often forgot to rain, lived a boy named Kido. His world was one of brown, tired fields, where villagers looked to the clouds with hope, only to find despair in their empty farms. Hunger was a quiet, relentless shadow, a constant companion to the children. But Kido saw something others missed. He felt a promise in the wind. While the rest of the village felt only dust on their faces, Kido listened. He heard its rush through the tall grass, its whistle between broken fences. He saw its unending motion when everything else had failed. To him, the wind was alive with possibility. Kido was a boy of simple means. No books to read, no proper tools to build with, no money for school. What he did have was an insatiable curiosity. It led him daily to the village junkyard, a treasure trove of forgotten things. He gathered old wires, broken bicycle parts, and scraps of metal that others had discarded as useless. The villagers watched him, their brows furrowed with confusion. Sometimes with amusement. "Why chase trash when you should chase food?" they'd ask, shaking their heads. But Kido paid them no mind. He was on a mission, driven by a vision only he could see. His work continued long after the sun went down. By the dim, flickering light of a single lamp, he would twist wires together, carve wood with a dull blade, and assemble small, hopeful fans from plastic and tin. He was learning the language of mechanics, of physics, through trial and error. Most of his creations failed. Some broke apart in his hands. Others barely moved, mocking his efforts. But Kido was undeterred. Each failure was not a defeat but a lesson, a stepping stone on his path to understanding. He was learning how to listen to the wind not just with his ears, but with his hands and his mind. Then, the worst drought the village had ever known descended upon them. The river, once a source of life, shrank into a cracked bed of mud. The crops withered and died, turning to dust. A palpable sense of hopelessness settled over the village. Families began to pack their meager belongings, preparing to abandon the homes their ancestors had built, believing the land had given up on them forever. The wind that once whispered promises now howled like a mourner across the barren fields, carrying with it the scent of dust and despair. But in this bleakest hour, as the village resigned itself to fate, Kido stood alone on a hill overlooking his home. He held his final creation, a culmination of all his failures and all his hope. It was a tall, fragile-looking windmill, pieced together entirely from the scraps he had so diligently collected. It was a strange silhouette against the darkening sky, a testament to one boy's stubborn belief. That night, a storm gathered. The winds, which had been a constant torment, grew into a ferocious gale. The village slept fitfully, their dreams filled with anxiety, completely unaware that a miracle was taking shape on the hill above them. As the wind roared with untamed power, Kido's windmill began to turn. It started slowly, tentatively, as if waking from a long slumber. Then, catching the full force of the gale, it spun faster, and faster, and faster still. The wires he had so carefully connected began to hum with an insane energy. The blades, made from flat and scrap metal, became a blur, a spinning vortex against the stormy sky. And then, it happened. A sudden, brilliant flash. Light burst from a single, salvaged bulb tied to the machine. It was a beacon in the darkness, a defiant star born of ingenuity and junk. Power. Electricity. The wind had answered Kido's call. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving a quiet, transformed world in its wake. Kido, working with renewed determination, connected his spinning windmill to a small water pump he had also ingeniously assembled. And with a sputter and a gush, water began to flow again. Life-giving water, drawn from deep within the earth, spilled onto the thirsty ground. The crops could be saved. The village could be saved. The villagers emerged from their homes, their faces etched with disbelief. They gathered in a silent, awestruck crowd at the bottom of the hill, their eyes fixed on the impossible sight. They stared at the boy, the one they had dismissed, the one who chased trash. He had turned the invisible air into visible life. No one laughed now. Their mockery was replaced with reverence. They called him a genius, a miracle worker, a hero. They saw him not as the boy who collected junk, but as the savior who had harnessed the wind. But Kido simply smiled, his face smudged with grease and dirt, but his eyes shining brighter than the light he had created. "I didn't create the wind," he said, his voice humble yet sure. "I just listened to it." From that day forward, everything changed. Kido's windmill became a symbol of hope and ingenuity. More windmills were built, inspired by his design. Lights began to glow in the village at night, chasing away the shadows of fear and uncertainty. Children, who had forgotten how to dream, now looked at the spinning blades and saw a future full of possibilities. They learned that problems were not just obstacles, but puzzles waiting to be solved. And whenever the wind swept through the recovering green fields, it no longer carried whispers of despair. It carried a powerful, undeniable reminder that even in the face of impossible odds, with enough curiosity, persistence, and a willingness to listen, even the smallest hands can harness the greatest forces in the world. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of incredible human spirit. See you next time.